man was attacked and police forced to use capsicum spray during a violent protest at Epping this afternoon.
Yep, that's me.
What are people shouting?
Down, shame on you, shame on you.
Xasuuqii drove from Canberra to Melbourne, intent on shutting down a public meeting for the visiting Ethiopian VIPs. The protesters succeeded. The meeting was cancelled. But not before one visiting delegate called out.
That's the guy, that person with the blue suit. Yep, that's him. That's the man. We grow up together, calling me, saying, "Hey, Xasuuqii," and I looked at him and I said, "Hey," and he said that, "Give me 15 minutes, then I will punish you." I said, "Hey, are you dreaming? This is Australia. I'm an Australian, and this is a free country, democratic country. This is not Ethiopia." And he said, in another way, I will punish you. And give me 15 minutes and I will show you in 15 minutes you will come under my feet begging me.
After the protesters disbanded, Xasuuqii received a phone call from Ethiopia.
And that phone call was telling me my mother has been taken away by armed men in a military uniform. My sister, which is a mother of 10, 3 of my brothers have been arrested on the same day.
So we have spoken to 10 protesters, and in total I think 32 relatives were rounded up and detained, and many of those people remain in detention. So Australia really needs to be lobbying the Ethiopian government at the highest levels to account for the whereabouts of these people and to make sure that all of them have been released. I think also the Australian government needs to be very careful about who it lets into this country.
Closed off from the world, Ethiopia's Somali regional state has for 15 years fought a low-level insurgency led by this group, the ONLF. Human rights organisations and foreign governments have conducted investigations of civilian massacres and other abuses by security forces.
We've documented crimes against humanity, war crimes on the part of the Ethiopian government security forces. They've committed acts of killing, rape, looting villages, extrajudicial killings and disappearances. So the president of the Somali regional state, Iiley, is himself a person with a very controversial human rights record. During the period that we documented crimes against humanity and war crimes in the Somali regional state, he was actually the head of security, so he was responsible for those security forces. And instead of being demoted for those abuses, he was actually promoted, and in 2010 he became the president of that region.
None of the investigations has led to the indictment or prosecution of Iiley. When Xasuuqii was a judge in his home state's Supreme Court, Iiley was still head of security. When Xasuuqii acquitted several people accused of being resistance members, he claims Iiley came for him.
He hit my mouth, he punched me. Then my lower lip was cracked at that time, and my mouth were full of blood, covered with full of blood. Then other men were like hitting, punching, all those sorts of things.
Anyone who was seen to be acting against the government paid a very heavy price. And that means that, judges, lawyers who didn't do the government's bidding were rounded up, detained, and in many cases they were tortured in detention, like Xasuuqii was.
He knows that he tortured me in person. He knows my name, he knows my history, he knows everything. I was in jail for him, directly for him, just personally for him, for 16 months. He used to come sometimes into the prison, visit the prison, and he used to torture people by himself in front of us, including me.
Do you have any doubts about Xasuuqii's testimony?
We have no doubts about Xasuuqii's testimony. We've interviewed numerous victims who have told us how Cabdi Iiley has been present during executions, during the torture of suspects, and how in some cases Cabdi Iiley has actually participated directly in that torture.
Lateline contacted 53-year-old Bisharo Wakti in Minnesota, United States, where she's lived for a year. She showed us her refugee papers and a picture of her once broken hand. The result of a beating, she says, by Cabdi Iiley when he was head of security in Somali Regional State. Bisharo claims it was Cabdi Iiley who personally dragged her from her home. Accused of being a resistance sympathiser, she spent 7 years in jail.
When he took her to the prison, he beat her up continually. In the process, she broke her hand, her left hand, and then he continually beat her up, and then he instructed the prison guard to beat her and then finally rape her.
A court-ordered release got Xasuuqii Shafe out of jail. He escaped to Kenya, was interviewed by the UN and given refugee status. He settled in Australia in 2010 and drives for Uber.
Now I'm a father of 3 with a very beautiful family, and I live safe. I feel safe, thanks for the government and people of Australia.
When the delegation, including Cabdi Iiley, arrived in June, many in the diaspora were dismayed. How could the representative of such a cruel administration be given a visa? Lateline asked the Department of Foreign Affairs, which replied,
Australia's privacy laws prevent us from discussing individual visa application cases.
The delegation came to learn about Australia's system of federation. They were welcomed to Parliament House, but according to Human Rights Watch, there was another agenda.
On the side, Cabdi Iiley was holding several meetings with community members, and we understand that was in part to also set up some kind of network of pro-government supporters.
Xasuuqii Shafe drove from Sydney to Canberra to confront him at a meeting.
I did want people, the world, the free world, the press, the human rights organizations to know who is he, who is Cabdi Iiley. Cabdi Iiley and me locked our eyes like we've been looking like this. Then from that time he started moving. He walked out of the meeting place.
Xasuuqii Shafe drove to Melbourne to join the protest there. He says his sister and elderly mother have been released from jail, but the fate of his 3 brothers is unknown. That could change, he says, if he accepted the government's terms. 2 weeks after the protests, Somali Regional State TV ran a story featuring demonstrators whose family members Human Rights Watch believes were arrested as punishment. The men say they've changed their minds, from supporting the resistance to fully backing the president.
I know where to go. There are people who will receive me. There are people who will tell me what to say, the people who record me, okay, and take that to the government. So my family, my brothers, my family in general are hostage.
This man, Faisal Ibrahim, appears in the news story too. He's a government supporter who helped film the item. Lateline visited his Melbourne home to clarify his role. Hello, Mr. Ibrahim. Faisal Ibrahim agreed to meet at a nearby shopping centre.
We are here to make some video. The government did not push them, or we did not push them to do it, but this was of they just the will to do it. Yeah, it's voluntarily. They did this for themselves to express the people, to express their feeling to government, also to express the rest of the members of ONLF, to show them that what we were doing was not the right thing.
He says Shukri Sharpe should follow suit.
The only issue, the only thing that he should make is he must accept the peace and the stability of the region. That's the only issue.
Why don't you do what they've done?
Okay, good question. Just recording a video will not be the end. That will not be the last action that they want me to do. What they want me to do is to follow every single step if they want. So literally I will be like totally under their control. This is a path so many people will go through unless we close that path.
Responding to Lateline, the Department of Foreign Affairs said it had
made representations to the Ethiopian government regarding the allegations of action against the families of members of the Ethiopian diaspora.
This is a fight for humanity. It's the fight for the human rights. This needs to just come into an end. We have to fight for this.